Welcome to another episode of Solitaryism, and I'm Robert Bitto, your host. Today I want to talk a little bit about dining alone. You know, I never knew that there was a stigma really behind this until I started to see things on the internet about people being very reluctant to go out to a restaurant and sit down and order food. Like that is supposed to be an activity reserved for family and friends and hanging out and all of that stuff. And people apparently get self-conscious just sitting there at a table by themselves. You know, I've never really had a problem with that, and I say if you feel that way, you need to do it a little bit more often if that's what you want to do. You need to do it a little more often so that you become used to it, just like anything. Just like being alone and overcoming loneliness while you're in your solitude. You need to get used to it. You need to get over it. So, jumping over that hurdle of going out and dining alone, the issue that I have with dining alone, the big issue that I have that plays a role in a little over 50% of my experiences when I'm dining alone is interactions with the staff, with the waiters, the hostesses, the restaurant workers. Okay, because when you walk into a restaurant, I have had a couple times people rolling their eyes at me when I say table for one. And there's a reason behind that. If you talk to a waiter, if there's a table for 6 and a table for 1, you're going to have to bring the food out and tend to the table of 1 the same as you would the table of 6, theoretically, running back and forth. But the tip is much larger for a table of 6. Table of 1 isn't going to represent a big tip for you. In fact, the people who do the seating at restaurants, if they don't like a certain waiter or waitress, they'll send them 1 tops instead of 6 tops, to use the terminology they use. But you hear complaints from wait staff all the time about having to deal with lone diners because they have to run back and forth just about the same amount of time for one person as they do a table of 6. Because they go up to the table, is there anything you need? The table of 1 will say, yeah, I need some hot sauce. So then they go back and get the hot sauce. Table of 6, they go up and say the same thing. Anything you need? Well, I need some hot sauce and she needs some tartar sauce. So he goes back and comes back with 2 things, but it's still 1 trip. So yeah, that's a big thing. They roll their eyes, or if you're empathetic, you can sense that. And a lot of times I'm not even expecting the kind of attitude I get. And another thing I don't like is when you say you want a table for 1 and they try to redirect you to the bar. Oh, would you like to sit at the bar? No, I want a table. I want to put my stuff out if I have, notes, a notebook or whatever. I'm always working on projects and stuff, and sometimes I want to be more spread out. Plus, I'm kind of a bigger guy, so I want more room. I've been to diners where the seats are smushed together like airline seats at the bar or at the counter. And I don't like that. I want to spread out my phone and reference materials or whatever I'm working with. So I want a table if I go out. And I want good service too. That's another thing. You get mediocre service, but that's with the whole decline of society. You get mediocre service, but then the person waiting on you will expect at least a 20% tip nowadays. And that bothers me too. There's this gray cloud, this pallor that's hanging over you sometimes when you're at a restaurant that the waiter, all that they're concerned about is the tip and trying to get as much money as they can out of you. The last time I went to a restaurant, I tipped almost 20%. It was a lunch restaurant, and I left the cash on the table. It was a local place. And then I took the check up to the cashier, who was my waiter. My waiter was the cashier. And the bill was $55.23. And I paid with $56 in cash. And the guy asked me, "Do you want your change?" And I'm like, "What? Do you want your change? Huh?" And I'm thinking, God, I just spent $56, a tip. Yeah, of course I want my change. You're not getting any more money from me. It's little things like that that bother me. And it happens a lot. And if you're alone, they're going to try to get as much out of you as they can with doing the least amount of work because they just see you as a tip. And so people will say, if you get terrible service at a restaurant like that, just order DoorDash from that restaurant. No, you just don't order anything from that restaurant. That restaurant I'm talking about, I won't DoorDash them. I won't ever go back there. And what I do, whenever I experience even the slightest slight from staff at a restaurant, I go online and I tell the whole world about it. That's the only thing really you can do besides never going back. And very rarely they will respond to you if you use Yelp or Google reviews or whatever. You'll see below, the response from the owner or the manager or the maitre d' or whatever. Yeah, that's the best you can do. And the older I get, the less I want to go out and eat. And not only because it's expensive, but because the service is not as good as it used to be. And the way you're treated by the restaurant staff as a lone diner. I don't have a problem with what other people sitting around me might think about me. I can't control that. And I don't care. And I'm surprised that that is a big cause of anxiety. I think the biggest problem with eating out is dealing with staff members who look at you as a loner and a loser and they treat you accordingly. So, yeah, forget about what the bimbo on the other table with her Chad boyfriend thinks about me. I don't care. Good for me that I'm part of their entertainment. If they do think, oh, what a loser, he's by himself. Whatever. Hey, good or bad, just as long as they're talking, right? Like I even care about that. But anyway, if you're dining out alone and if you're confronted with indifferent staff, let it be known to the manager, to the online community, and vote with your dollars. You deserve a nice evening out, and you deserve to have people wait on you and take care of the dishes and all that fun stuff. You're paying for it. So you want to talk money? You're paying for it. So I think that's about all I wanted to say on this. Thank you once again for listening and watching, and remember to be happy alone.